Flying during COVID. What is it like? What has been my experience? I've taken 2 flights now, one in July and one in August, and I have been asked a lot about what was it like? How different was it? How was it the same? So I thought I'd make a video talking about both of my experiences on different airlines and kind of my thoughts on the whole process. So here we go. So first things first, from the moment that you step into the airport to the moment that you leave your destination airport, you must wear a mask at all times. So this is mine, and that is probably the hardest part of the whole process for me. And I actually booked 2 direct flights. So I booked them on purpose so that I wouldn't have to wear my mask as long. And I'm not someone who notoriously likes getting to the airport early, so I tried not to do that these times, but you do have to wear it the whole time, and there's really no time to take it off unless you go to the bathroom. That was pretty much the only time I could take it off, take a breath, and then put it back on. So my first flight was on July 26th, 2020, and it was from Dallas-Fort Worth to Salt Lake City, and it was a direct flight, and I left around 3:30 in the afternoon. It was on a Sunday. DFW is a major international airport. It's also one of the main hubs of American Airlines, which was the airline that I flew. And so I wasn't really sure what to expect. How busy would it be? It was a Sunday, but still the airport's usually pretty busy. I always check in online ahead of time, and then once I get to the airport, if I'm checking a bag, I always use the little standalone kiosks to actually print my bag check ticket, and then I just take it up to the counter, which is what I did. There was absolutely no line. I literally got my bag check, walked up to the counter, and there weren't really a lot of people around. All the employees were wearing masks, and as I said, I was wearing my mask. The only time they ask you to pull it down is when they're looking at your license through security, and they need to verify that it's actually you. So speaking of security, next I went through security, which I have to say DFW was actually pretty fast. I've never had to wait super long to get through. And I do have TSA pre-check, which I have a video on global entry versus TSA pre-check. So if you're interested in how to get that, I would encourage you to go watch that video. But again, there was nobody in line. I literally was trying to drink the last little bit of my water as I walked through because I actually didn't have any time to I didn't have 30 seconds to prep. So I got through bag check and security really fast. Now, once I actually got into the airport past security, that's really where you enter more of the American Airlines zones with their departure gates, and there was really no social distancing. I had kind of read this online, and that was what I experienced. So our flight was packed. Every seat in our plane was full from DFW to Salt Lake City. They were actually offering vouchers to ask people to move to a different flight. So that's how full it was. The boarding area at the gate, people were trying themselves to social distance, and luckily the gate next to us didn't have a flight, so we were taking over that section too to spread out, but there was no instructions to do so. There were no signs or anything like that. And then the boarding process was the same as it always is. Everyone groups together, which is kind of annoying. I really don't like that. I try not to. Waiting for their group number to be called, and we boarded in herds of people just like normal. And I unfortunately got the middle seat on my flight because American Airlines, to my knowledge, has not blocked off those middle seats, and I was assigned one, so I'm guessing they don't. One of the things that they did do was they handed me a little paper bag when I got on. It had my baby water and my snack for the flight. So they just hand you that little bag when you first get on the plane. There's no in-flight service or anything like that, and that was all that you had for the 3-hour flight, 2.5, 3-hour flight. That was my experience with American. I wasn't super impressed by any measures or any things that they had tried to put in place, other than the fact that people were wearing masks, and they did require you to wear a mask for the entire flight. Okay, so my second flight was on Friday, August 28th, so about a month later. And it was from Salt Lake City to Oklahoma City, which is where I was flying to. It was also a direct flight, and it was about 10:30 in the morning. So completely different day, completely different airport. everything, different airline. So same thing, into the airport was fine. It wasn't that busy. The reality is there's just not as many people flying, so the airports weren't as busy. I did the kiosk for my bag drop, and I have TSA pre-check, so I walked right up and I didn't even stand in line, and I got through pretty fast. Some differences that I saw right off the bat when I got to the Delta gates and their sort of area. First of all, they had actually placed on every other chair that it was blocked off, and to please practice social distancing. And for the most part, except for like moms and daughters, or like moms and kids, or couples who were traveling together, everyone followed that rules and sat, every other chair. So there was a lot of social distancing happening in the actual boarding area. That was already better, like right off the bat. They also, Delta has publicly said that they will not sell the middle seats. And so when I got on my plane, which was a little bit smaller plane than the one I took to Salt Lake City, it only had 2 seats on either side and the row was in the middle. Everyone had a window seat. So the middle aisle of the airplane was completely bare. They also, instead of handing you your little snack pack when you get on the plane, they did do in-flight service, but they still also handed out those bags. So it was the same sort of idea behind, we're just gonna hand you, instead of going back and forth, we're just gonna hand you your little packet, but instead of doing it when you get right on the plane, which really, when you have your bags and you're trying to put stuff up and you're trying to find your seat, is really not the best time to hand people more stuff. So I kind of like the way that Delta did it, in that they handed it out as sort of as the in-flight service. Overall, I would say Delta did much better than American when it came to actually like putting things in place that were, attempting to social distance or keep people safe. Flying is kind of strange just with these new policies in place, and having to wear a mask the whole time, like I said, is probably the most challenging part. But from when I saw everyone around me and everyone on my flights followed the rules, wore their mask, didn't complain about anything, tried to social distance themselves, even if the airlines weren't prompting them to do that. So those were my 2 experiences. I don't know when my next flight will actually be. That was probably it for a little while, but I felt safe doing it. I felt okay flying. I was staying a month in Utah, and so for me, that was sufficient amount of time to justify flying out there. So yeah, that was my experience flying during COVID. I'm curious to know if you have flown during our current pandemic crisis, what your experiences have been, maybe on other airlines, maybe on Southwest or Spirit or some other airline that you might have flown. So thanks for watching, you guys. And if you have any more questions about travel or want travel tips, just let me know in the comments below and I'll be sure to make a video on that. So I will see you next week.